So now the second part of the class, we speak about of man, of the human person. So we try to, during 50 minutes, about 55 minutes, to reflect on that. After you will fill the forms for the appreciation of the class. So there is two parts of rational psychology. The first is the analytical part, from the nature of the soul, for example, to its power. From, for example, we say man is a rational animal. That is the nature of man. And from that, we go to the different power of reason, to different power of his animality. That is analytical. But it is not the way we proceed here. The second way is the synthetic part. The synthetic is the definition of the whole human composite, made up of various elements discovered in the analytical part. In fact, during the short classes we had on philosophy of man, we can say the first part we studied before, sense knowledge, cognition, sense knowledge, intellection, sense appetite, and for the will. All that is analytical. And after that, at the end now, we put that together. And that is the synthetic part. And an evaluation, assessment of the resulting structure of man from what we studied before. So we study analytically, and now tonight we try to put that together to have a clearer idea of what is man. In that study of man, we already began 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, was to we call that also philosophical anthropology. And then we try to know what is man, who is man, at the point of view of philosophy. Of course, we refer to science, but it is not a class of science. Our purpose is just to discuss about man at the light of the first principle and the principle of causality. Okay? Origin, the end, and the matter and form, soul and body, constitution. So number 29.2. So a man is a rational animal. On that definition, we have from Aristotle. Father Willner give you a different definition here. Physical definition is a living substance, composed of material body and spiritual body. That is the nature of man. Or you have a metaphysical, rational animal, etc. What is important to know, it is what is constituting man. Man is at the same time a body and a soul. Is at the same time an intellect and matter. He is spiritual and material at the same time. And that leads us to a central problem, is the problem of the union of soul and body. And we can now speak about the problem because we have already, the last class study, what is the soul. Remember that, what is the entelechy, what is animating man, the soul. We know that not every philosopher has the same opinion, the same position on the union of man and body and soul. For Descartes, for example, the union between body and soul is accidental, is not essential, is not a substance. Because man essentially, substantially is a mind, is a thinking machine, is a thought. I think, therefore I am. And the rest is accidental. For St. Thomas, for Aristotle, it is essential, it is substantial. The union, both together, makes a man. Make a man, together, not only one. Okay? So the human nature, the human soul differs from all others in being rational and intellective, and also volitive. You can add that. Not only we are an intellect, but we have a will. And what is a will? It is an intellective appetite. Yeah, we said that. Intellective appetite. Secondly, the body exists in virtue of the human soul. The body, if it's an essential part, and it has a positive value, my body, I am a body, but I am not only a body. I am a living body. And because I am a living body, I am a principle of life. It's that principle of life which unites all my cells, my member, my power, is we call the soul. So the body is essential. But the body exists not on its own right, that means not by itself, not in itself, but in virtue of the human soul. The body has not the power to exist in itself. That means if there was no principle of life, my body will be trillions of bodies, trillions of cells, because I am made with trillions of cells. What unites all that in one reality is the soul. So I am not myself only to my body, I am myself to my soul with my body, both together. We cannot separate them. So the human soul is the form of the body. So if you remember the theory of allemorphism, the body as matter, because my body is made with matter, quantified matter, that matter I have here can become anything. If a crocodile eats me, I will become my crocodile. I will disappear. My body existed for a long time. My cells are all. Okay? So what makes the unity, what determines the matter, we saw that it is the form. What determines the matter here to be a desk is not the wood, it is the form put into the wood. So what determines my body?
Soul.
It is my soul. So I can say, my soul, you follow me? My soul is the form of my body. My analogy. The soul is the form of my body. We can say also that the form is matter, like the potency to act. That means matter is indeterminate. So matter is in potency. And the form is actualizing that potency to be a cat, or to be a dog, or to be a desk. So if I apply that to the body, my body, made with trillions of cells, become this body, human body, because it is actualized by my soul. So my soul is the act of my body. My soul is the form of my body. The soul is the act of my body. In that here, we call that here the allemorphical definition given by Aristotle. Definition of the soul. Here is the metaphysical definition of the soul. So the metaphysical, it is the act. So the soul is the act of the body. Metaphysical definition. The soul is the form of my body. Allemorphical definition. Okay? So two definitions given by Aristotle. One on the level of philosophy of nature, allemorphism. So if I consider my body as matter, the form is determining my matter. That form is my soul. If I consider my body in potency for activity, etc., it is my soul that gives to the potency is actuality. So therefore my soul is the act of the body. Is the act of the body.
One is metaphysical.
Metaphysical definition here. Allemorphical. Allemorphical because form and matter is part of allemorph. Matter, morphe, form. Metaphysical, act and potency. In fact, the first chapter you study in metaphysics is the chapter of act and potency. Being in act, being in potency. Existing really inactive. Or existing in a possible way, potency. Okay? Next page, 194. So the union between the body and the soul, we call that a substantial union. In the word substantial, you have the word substance. You know what is substance? It is being
Under.
in itself, being an accident being in another. You remember that, huh?
Yes.
Substance is being in itself. The substance is the subject of the 9 categories we call also accident, predicamental accident, predicamental accident or category of being, category of being. They are in the substance. So my body is, with my soul, a substance. My body alone is not a substance. My body alone is trillion of substances. And when the person dies, the body is no more the body of the person. It was the body of the person. Now it is a heap of molecules, accidentally united in the form, in the appearance of the body, but it's not the body. It's a question of time. But with incineration, it's a question of a minute, of days, and if they are buried in the soil, it's a question of time, you know. Anyway, we are dust, and we are going back to
Dust.
dust. That is matter. But what gives to that dust its existence, its value, it is the soul.
Breath.
But to be a man on earth, we must have body and soul. So body and soul are the substantial component of the human person. Body and soul. And you know that the body and soul, it is the substance. We say rational animal. Remember we studied, what is that? Whatness, quiddité? When we studied first chapter at the beginning, simple apprehension. What is a thing? Definition. What is definition? What is definition of man? Rational animal. We study essence. What is the essence of man? Rational animal. But here there is a difference. Here it is the oneness, the quiddité, we call essence, because it is related to existence. So I don't say the oneness is the source of activity. I will say the essence with the source of activity. And when the essence is the source of activity, we call that nature. Nature is the essence as source of activity. Okay? And essence, it is the fact that we look at the existence of the thing and we realize that the thing exists not by itself, but receive existence. Okay? We studied that in metaphysics. And now we have another concept, the concept of substance. What is the substance of man? Is to be a rational animal, to be a soul and body together. Okay? So substance, what is that? So the verb sub, under, stand, starting. You have the subject, the same thing, subject, to be put under. So the substance of man is not only to be a soul, is not to be a body, is to be a composite, both together. Okay? In that composite, we call that also a person. He is a human person. Okay? So what makes a person, it is the fact that substance, that substance, body and soul, is intelligent and free. We use the word rational. Aristotle used the word rational to express that. He's a rational animal. I mean, he is an animal endowed with intelligence and freedom, with a will, a free will. Okay. Now I go to number 3.2 on page 94. The problem we saw just before, I spoke about Descartes. The problem with Descartes, it is how we can assure the unity of, how it's possible that, for example, we have we learn a joy, a spiritual joy, and my body is happy, or I feel I am well with my body, or I have a suffering in my body and my soul is suffering. You know, it's difficult for Descartes to explain that intimate connection between body and soul. But Aristotle, for him, it is an essential unity, one man. And now that interdependence now of the human soul from matter. We saw that the human soul cannot be a human soul alone. After that, yes, because the soul is spiritual. But before, the soul does not pre-exist. The soul exists at the same time the body, when the soul is informing the body. Well, when we study biology, recent biology, we know that life is in the first cell. Begin in the first cell, but we don't know when. The first cell has everything, the DNA, the chromosome, the programmation for all the rest. How do we know there is life in the first cell? When the first cell begin to divide, begin to move from within. What is the characteristic of life? Action
Spontaneity.
from spontaneity. Spontaneity is action from within. So when the first cell begins to divide in other cells, we are sure there is life. But we don't know when life begins, because we have no means to measure that. We say at the conception. But scientifically, we can say only from, we know the nature of a thing from its activity. What is the first activity of the cell? Is division, multiplication. And now the first cell, when it divides, we are sure the soul is there. Because it can divide, organize, program only from within. That must be a principle. That is the soul. So the soul is determining the matter. That is the principle of life. Now, there are some I spoke about that. Some biologists. Did I speak about that last week? Rich and Claude Bernard.
No.
No. Claude Bernard is a French biologist. And Hans Rich is a German biologist. And we know that Hans Rich because he was the teacher of Jacques Maritain. Jacques Maritain, at that time he was not converted, he was a liberal Jew, Protestant at the same time, and no, he was not the Jew, his wife was the Jew. And he went to study biology in Germany with Hans Rich. And both of them, after studying life, they say we can reduce life only to matter. There is something, because organization, life, the first cell, everything is organized. Imagine from one cell you arrive to have a whole body with many, with eyes and organs, etc. That is incredible. I mean, there is a principle of organization, and we call that entelechy. Entelechy, but there are two words in Greek. In. Telos. Telos
End.
means end. Finality, end. Ekein means to have.
To have.
So it is, they say there is a principle of organization. Telos. And you know, if the first cell divide and create organs, etc., because in the first cell there is a finality, a principle of finality. We call that the soul. But as scientific, the scientists did not call that, but they call that entelechy. That is a great step against materialism. Okay? So I come back to the text here. Again, the transcendence of the spirit of a material reality is manifested by the immateriality of intellection. I will say more than that, by the spirituality of intellection. It's stronger than immateriality. Spirituality. Because the spirituality means independence from matter to function. When we studied last week the intellection, 2 weeks ago, you remember the intellect agent sent his light into the phantasm. The intellect agent is the one who produced the light, independently of the body, and abstract from the phantasm the concept. So, of course, they use a phantasm singular. The phantasm is an instrumental efficient cause, but the intellect is the principal efficient cause. It is an efficient cause without, not provoked by matter, independent from matter, and the capacity of reflection also. And when we studied the freedom, we saw that the free will of man is able to dominate his own inclination. That means he is detached from matter, because if I can control matter, I must be above. Otherwise, I will follow the rest. So that is 2 signs or 3 signs to prove of the spirituality of the human soul. Spirituality is more than immateriality. For example, the form of the desk here entering your mind is immaterial. It is not spiritual. The soul of your cat is immaterial. It is not spiritual. That means it cannot exist independently of the matter. But the human soul can exist independently of the matter. It is the reason why it is very important to understand the phenomenon of intellection and the phenomenon of volition to understand the immortality of the soul, the spirituality of the soul. Because we know the spirituality of the soul only from spiritual activity. The 2 spiritual activity of the human mind is intellection and volition. Because those faculties have activity, they can exercise independently of matter. So everything spiritual is immaterial, but not everything immaterial is spiritual. So spiritual, the idea is not only non-material, it is independent of matter to exist and to be active, to act, to produce an effect. Okay? I continue to text. This means that the human soul having an activity that is very important, intrinsically independent of material condition. That is the definition of spiritual. You have that, very, very, very important. The entrance, because many times people say, immaterial is spiritual. It's not true. Immaterial is not necessarily spiritual, but what is spiritual is necessarily immaterial. I repeat, that is intrinsically independent of material condition, cannot have a mode of being interior to its mode of operation. So that means that the mode of operation reveals the nature of the thing. So if the operation is spiritual, the power is spiritual, and the subject under the power, the soul, is spiritual. So we cannot know directly the spirituality of the soul, human soul, but only through its activities. I continue. In other words, the human soul must be essentially independent of matter. That paragraph 3.2 is very, very important. Not only for now, for your studies in theology also. To understand very clearly what is the meaning of spiritual. And by the way, spiritual does not mean supernatural. That is different. So I think many times we say, my spiritual life. An atheist who studies, he takes decision, he has also a spiritual life. But he does not have a supernatural life. So many times we confound spirituality and supernaturality. We should say, strictly speaking, we should say, my supernatural life, when we speak about the gift of the Holy Spirit. about the state of grace because it's supernatural. I will say not everything supernatural is spiritual, but not every spiritual reality is supernatural. I give you an example, very simple. Is the devil a spiritual reality?
Yes.
Yes. He is a saint? No.
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 He is spiritual. He is spiritual. So we must be attentive to that. I think, of course, we use the word spiritual the same way as supernatural. But we must be aware that when we speak about spiritual, it can be applied also to atheists, it can be applied to the devil. The difference is when the grace is under that, animating. We should say not my spiritual life, we should say, strictly speaking, my supernatural life. But continue to the spiritual life. But we must be aware of that. Okay? For example, your soul is spiritual. Is your soul supernatural? No. So everything supernatural is spiritual, but not every spiritual thing is supernatural. It is natural for man to have a spirit. It is his nature. But it's not natural for man to be a son of God, a supernatural. Okay? The words are important, no? Especially when we define dogmas, we study dogmas in theology. No? I continue. Materiality of man. Man is also a reality material. Huh? Body belongs essentially to his nature. So I am body and soul. I am body and soul. I am not an angel. I am not a cat. I am a man. A man. Okay. Man is union of material and spiritual realities. Be careful, not supernatural, spiritual realities. I go just after that. Now, very important. Now, the only way in which one can reconcile all these data is by maintaining that here. Note that, underline that with your yellow pen. The human soul enforces matter as substantial form. In so doing, however, the human soul is not dependent on matter in the very fact of existing. That means, it is not matter that gives existence to your soul. Your soul does not come from matter. It does not come from the body of your father, nor the body of your mother. Okay? In so doing, however, the human... Okay. But, on the contrary, man's body is dependent on his soul and exists in virtue of the soul existence. As long as the soul animates the body, the man is existing as a man. If the soul is no more animating the body because the body is falling into ruins, but the soul is alone, continue after that to be the form of the body, but without a body. Like a widow is the former wife of the dead husband. Such a special and intimate ontological relationship, ontological, that means one body, ontos, being, between soul and body alone explain first man's substantial unity, secondly the spiritual character of his soul, and the fact that his body is an essential part of his nature. Essential part, that means my body shares in the dignity of my whole person. Is the reason why we must respect the body of everyone. We cannot mutilate.
As a temple of the Holy Spirit.
Yes, theology.
That's theology.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Next page. Now, human soul. Now, we say, remember, the human soul is the form of the
body.
matter. The form of the body, or the human soul is the act of the body. Okay. So, it is the substance and form. I go to the next paragraph. The human soul is immaterial. What is the word we should write at the place? Is spiritual. Spiritual. It is a subsistent form or a spirit. It says spirit. spiritual.
Spirit.
Spirit meaning a soul. Okay. This point should also be clear from man's substantial unity and from the foregoing analysis of intellection. In fact, here we refer to the study of intellection. When we study intellection, we saw clearly the role of the agent intellect and the phantasm. Here it is what they speak about that here. They make allusion to that. Okay. So the human is not complete as two species. With regard to this point, human nature is a species insofar as man is composite of body and soul. Body alone is not. When we study in science, we compare man to a chimpanzee, but most of the time we don't take care of the whole man. We take care only. We consider only the body. We don't consider the soul. That means our study is incomplete. Is the reason why in evolution we are more attentive to the form of the body than to the activity of the body, of the person. For example, when you study the priest, the men of the cave, they are more interested to see if the man was like a chimpanzee, the form of his body, than the activity. Because when the caveman existed, what was important? It was not the position of his body, it was the capacity to write on the wall, to make arrow, to bury the dead. But in science, we don't think about that. We consider he was like a monkey. After that, he was probably somebody. He became flat. That is secondary. Hitler used that a lot during the war to measure those who were Aryan and those who were not Aryan, according to the form of the skull. Okay. Number 29.4. The human soul is dynamically composed, be careful, of power. That means the soul has many powers. For example, my intellect has two functions, agent intellect, passive intellect. My soul has also a spiritual faculty we call for the will, appetite. Okay? And in fact, St. Thomas called the power of the soul, he called them the parts of the soul. Interesting, huh? If you read St. Thomas, he speaks about the parts of the soul. It is the powers of the soul, the intellect and the will. Okay? I continue. So is one of power parts, which are ordered to the diversity of man life activity. So how we can explain that? We have many activities and one person. It is always the same thing. The soul is the principle of coordination, the principle of unification in the multiple power we possess. Now, habit. Some of the power of the soul require habit for their perfection. You know, a habit, it is an acquired quality. Say, Father Reichman, James Reichman, I told you last week, he called that acquire operational structure. Acquire operational structure. Habit. Here, we say, it is acquired here. Quality as opposed to, they are acquired, they are not innate. And those habits, they are there to perfect our power, to give stable disposition. St. Thomas speaks about stable disposition. Something preparing us to do something easily, rapidly, and surely. Okay, we'll come back on that in the following pages. So, habits are acquired quality. For example, science, the type habit of the intellect, virtues of justice. perfecting the will. Remember the last class? We said that, huh? Remember that?
Right.
The cardinal virtue, perfecting the intellect, particular intellect, prudence,
temperance.
justice, and relation with others, and temperance and fortitude, perfecting the concupiscible and irascible appetite. Okay?
Prudence, justice.
So, what is important here? Now, the point 6, the human soul is dependent on the human body for certain of its operation. Like I am dependent on my chalk to write. But that is very important. Huh? I am the principal efficient cause of writing. And my chalk is the instrumental efficient cause of writing. Okay? Therefore, my soul is spiritual. It needs the phantasm only to have an instrument, but it does not depend on that phantasm. Okay? So here we can see that now we know that the soul is spiritual, because the soul is spiritual. It is simple, it's not composed. What is simple is not composed. The soul is not composed. Of course, we speak about the powers of the soul, but they are the function of the soul. The soul is one, like my hand is one hand, but I have many powers. I can do many things. I can acquire many habits with it. Okay? And what is simple is incorruptible. So from the simplicity of the soul, the spirit of the soul, we can go to the incorruptibility. And if the thing is incorruptible, it is immortal. And now you have the foundation of the immortality of the human soul. The human soul is immortal. Why? Because at the beginning it is
Spiritual.
What is spiritual is simple.
Oh.
What is simple is incorruptible. What is incorruptible is immortal. That means after death, my soul will continue to exist. But what is important, it is here, spiritual, to prove that. And we prove that through the activity of the intellect and of the will. You know? I go to next page 196. So being spiritual at the death of the body, the human soul continues to exist, because it does not depend on matter for its existence. Indeed, its spiritual operation of interaction and volition give clear indication of its materiality, for they reveal no intrinsic dependence on matter, only the extrinsic dependence required for the origin of the idea. So that paragraph is very, very important. Page 196. Because here you have how we can explain, how we can affirm that the soul is immortal. Because
It's spiritual.
why it is spiritual? Because it has
it's
activity independent of matter. I think you should know that very clearly. Because you know something in philosophy we have to absolutely to understand. And that is fundamental, absolutely fundamental. How we can speak about the immortality.
Independent of matter, that means it's not. It's
That
detached
means the
from
matter does not produce.
Oh.
My chalk is, I write independently of that. That means I use that only as a tool. My activity of writing, my idea I write on the board don't depend on my chalk. So my thought is totally independent of that chalk. But to express it, I use a chalk. So the chalk is the instrumental efficient cause. But the principle, the one, is me. For example, you have a concert, the pianist plays the piano. The piano is the instrument. Do we give a medal to the piano?
No. No.
Do we applaud the piano? No, we applaud the pianist. Very, very, very important. Because here it is the rock, the foundation of immortality. And we attain that because we study intellection and volition. I don't know if you realize that in philosophy everything is linked with everything. like in geometry, like in mathematics. We cannot speak about immortality if you don't understand what is spiritual. And if we have no reason, what is the reason to affirm spirituality? Otherwise, we affirm the soul is immortal, the soul is incorporeal. No, we must know why. And we spend 1 hour, about 2 hours only for intellection and 2 hours only for volition. It's not only to have fun, it is because it's the foundation of the affirmation of the immortality of the human soul.
Maybe we can say the body is material, not simple, corruptible, immortal.
Exactly. The body is, because it is material,
not
it is
simple.
not simple,
It's
is
corruptible.
made with, is made with here also simple, not divisible. And yes, exactly, you're right. Yes. You know, something are essential. The role of a teacher is to underline that. Because when you study, everything seems to be on the same level, no? Everything seems to be on the same level. But in fact, they are not on the same level. Some things are excessively important. You know, I teach for you the first time matter and form, act and potency, substance. I know, after 52 years of teaching philosophy, that these are excessively important. You have to master that. Huh? Because it will use continually during all your studies in theology. Even after. And you see, speak about information. Now you understand information is to put the form of thing in my mind, you know. You have an understanding of things people don't have. You go farther than only the word. You go behind. You go to the reality under the word. Okay, so the role of the intellect, from Jolivet, here it proves the intellect is spiritual and the will after that is spiritual. In fact, here Jolivet expressed exactly what I told you just before. You read that, huh? But I don't have time to read everything. Now I go after that. Other evidence for the immortality of the soul, another evidence. In fact, the second paragraph, beginning by the intellect of Monseigneur Jolivet and the will of the same author, they are two proofs of the immortality of the soul, the spirituality of the soul. And the next paragraph also, I will read that with you. From man, unlimited spiritual capacity and desire. Man is cannot is not is a mistake. Man cannot be satisfied with temporal limited good. He is yearning for the absolute good and perfect permanent happiness. You remember that? Voluntas ut natura. Okay? Okay? That proves that man's soul is open toward the infinite and perfect good, as it was open to the infinite and perfect truth also before. Only a spiritual soul can be open to the infinite and perfect good or happiness. You know, here is a proof of the spirituality. Nothing can satisfy a material, a human soul. Nothing. You can give $10 million, you can say, I don't want that. Think about St. Francis. That appetite for the infinite good transcends, is above all sensitive appetite. And you know, some people are ready to sacrifice their life only for God. How we can do that? Because we have a spiritual power we call the will. The will is a spiritual power. So if my soul has spiritual power, my soul is also spiritual, is a proof of the spirituality. You know, we are searching for the proof of the spirituality. That is the foundation of the rest. Okay? I continue. And even the spiritual appetite can oppose sensible appetite, opposed. So I have the control, I master my sense appetite, therefore I must be above, I must be independent. I must be independent on my senses, sense appetite, to dominate them. Therefore I am not depending of matter, I am independent on my matter, I am spiritual. You know? Okay? And the next paragraph also, another proof, is the moral proof given by Kant. And we will study that also when you study philosophy of God. the moral proof of the existence of God. You know, for Kant, he start from the fact, absolute fact of duty. For Kant, duty is an absolute fact. Everybody on earth, atheist, non-atheist, have duty. Everybody. At least to pay when you buy something. Okay? And to stop at the right light. We have duty. Huh? That is universal. For him, it is an absolute. And he starts from the duty to prove anything. First, he says, if I have an obligation, if I have an obligation, I must be free. Only free people can be obliged. Morally obliged, I cannot oblige my cat. Okay, I can force physically, but morally I cannot oblige my cat to do something. So first, the fact I have a duty, he arrived to prove the freedom of man. Huh? The freedom of man. Man is, he can't oppose metaphysics. So he tried to find the truth, not from metaphysics. Huh? So freedom is not applied on metaphysics, it's applied on the fact that if I have duty, I have the freedom to accept those duties or not to accept that, to accomplish or not. Secondly, he said if we have duty, we must be punished if we don't obey, or you must be rewarded if we do well. Or on earth, it's not that. The wicked have success, prosperous, and the other, they are honest men, they are poor. So there is no justice on earth. If there is no justice on earth, there must be justice after death. So, what is the conclusion of that? If there is justice after death, I must be
Mortal.
Immortal.
Immortal.
I must be immortal. So he proved the immortality, the soul from the fact of duty. And finally, he says, if I will live after death to be punished or to be rewarded, if I have an obligation, that must come from someone who is above me.
God.
God. And that is what we call the moral proof of God. What is interesting for us now, it is here. It speaks about the immortality of man from the fact man is obliged to accomplish his duty. We call that the moral proof. The moral proof. Okay? Now I go to the origin of the human soul.
It's the immortal proof, right?
No, moral.
Moral proof.
Moral proof.
Sorry.
Moral, duty, moral proof. Now the origin of the human soul. The principle is the mode of being is linked with the mode of becoming. The mode of being is linked with the mode of becoming. So if we are a kind of being, that kind of being depends the kind of becoming. For example, if I am a cat, my becoming is made by cats, you know. So the being is related to the way. In fact, there is a common relation between being and becoming. For example, that is printed. So there is a relation of between the way that the ink is on the paper and the method to apply the ink on the paper. You know, there is a link, if you want, between the effect and the cause. The beginning. The way of becoming something is linked, is preparing the way of being. The becoming is, for example, you are a seminarian. You are in becoming, to become a priest. So when you are a priest, you can say, I am a priest because I prepare to become a priest. You know? There is a common relation, something already, a link between the way you are now and the way you were before. When I have a priest, being a priest, It is in relation with becoming a priest. That means to be a seminarian. If I want to become a dentist, I will not be a seminarian. I will study medicine or dentistry, you know. You understand that? The way a thing exists is linked with the way it became to exist. Okay? Well, now, that is important. Why? You will see that. Huh? So, just as man's soul, the two last line, is intrinsically independent of matter in being, it is intrinsically independent matter in his becoming. You know, if the soul is independent of matter in the fact it exists as a soul, that means the way the soul become to exist is also the same. So if the soul is spiritual, the becoming of the soul will be spiritual. That means cannot come from the body of the parent, for example. Cannot come from matter. You know, if it is spiritual, the cause must be spiritual. A flower must come from a flower. A cat must come from a cat. A priest must come from a seminary. Okay? No? The consequence is very serious. We look at that after. Turn the page, the next page. As a consequence, the human soul cannot be produced from matter. So it cannot come from the body of the parent. Can the soul come from the soul of the parent?
No.
No. Can the soul be divided? Half mother, half no.
No.
So the soul only can be created. That means I am sure that when the first cell begins to develop, God created life. Is the reason why life is sacred from the first cell. You know, I will say instead of thinking for the conception, I will say from the first cell. Because we don't know when happened conception. When the conception happened, nobody knows. Can be 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 30 seconds before, maybe only a fraction of a second, I don't know. What we know, the soul is there. Because there is no motion without the soul, you know. So the becoming of the soul is linked with the being of the soul. So if the soul is spiritual, the life in the first cell is also spiritual. And it is a real living person there. Okay? I go now to the notion of person we have there. Well, two things, page 197. First, it is an individual substance of rational nature. Individual substance of rational nature. That means intellect and the will. Okay? So we have to explain individual and substance. And to help you for that, I invite you to go to page 197A. Okay, you have that page, huh? Okay. Well, first, if you go to the definition of Boëtius at the bottom of the page, a person is an individual substance or rational nature. It is what I wrote here. That is from Boëtius. Now we have to explain first substance or subsistence. I already explained that to you. Substance is the being existing in itself, not in another. Now subsistence is that substance having received existence. If you want, it is the substance existing. The substance existing. So they create a word for that, subsistence. And you have in English the verb to subsist, subsist. What is subsist? To continue to exist. Not subsist, to continue to exist. So in the word substance, existence, subsistence. So the person is a subsistence. Now, if you go to at the bottom of the page, just it is written suppositum, supposit, or hypostasis, hypostasis. Hypo, the same thing as under, sub, or hypo, same meaning, under. Stasis, to stay. Ecstasis, to stay outside of myself. Ecstasis. Hypostasis, to stay under. Supposite, the same thing, to be to be put under. You know, it is a substance. A subsistence is a substance that is complete in itself and uncommunicated. Well, it is a substance complete and incommunicated. That are the two characteristics of individual. Any individual, that is true for a cat, for a flower, as for man. It is a substance complete in itself, complete and uncommunicated. They are the two characteristics of individual, and they are also the characteristic of a person. The difference is individual. The concept of individuality does not include rationality necessarily. For example, your cat is an individual. Your dog is an individual. Man is an individual with rationality. Okay? That means every individual is complete. When we study metaphysics being, we see that being is one, and by the fact being is one, is other, is different, is aliquid, different, aliquid, other. So it is the same here, you know, it is the same. You know, the complete, you look at your face here, all, one here, one, unum in Latin, if you like Latin. Self-contained, perfect, integral. All are characteristic of an individual. A cat is an individual when it is a complete cat. When it is an old cat. He is everything, he has everything to be a cat. Maybe he lost a part of his tail, but that's not the problem. Okay? He has the essential to be considered as a cat. But at the same time, every individual cannot be communicated to another. You remember what we studied just yesterday, the principle of individuation. You remember that? It is quantify matter. Matter with quantity. Because matter by itself has no determination. But matter, quantify matter. Matter with quantity make you different from another. In such a way there is no identical twin. That does not exist.
No?
Impossible. Because the quantity of one is not the quantity of the other. They are individual because they are incommunicated. My quantity cannot be given to another, cannot be one with another. No. And my quantity, my quantified matter, make me totally apart of the other. We are the same by our rationality. We are different by our quantified matter. We are individual. That is characteristic of individual is quantified matter, incommunicated. Quantity is incompenetrable. We cannot put two books at the same place at the same time. Impossible. Okay. Secondly, what is the other meaning? We saw that other. Aliquid, different. Aliquid in Latin. Okay. individual. Autonomous. Huh? Autonomous. Autonomous. That means different. Autonomous. Huh? Different. Okay? Etc. So we are here the characteristic of any individual, but also the characteristic of the human person. It is an individual. It is a substance, and it is rational. And that is a person. And what is made the difference between a non-person? It is rationality. Is the reason why I don't like when we call people individual. There are three individuals, no, three persons. No, three cats are three individuals. In French, to call individu to a person is an insult. And when we want to insult someone, we say sale individu, dirty individual. That is an insult. Because an individual is a cat. A cat is an individual. A man is more than an individual. He's a person. Huh? Okay? So I come back now to the text on page 198. So the corollary, at the bottom of the page, special dignity of person. In fact, when we are born as a person. We receive, as Father Reichmann said, a personhood, the quality of being a person. And everyone, as a human being, is on the same level. We have the same personhood. We are in the same species. Rational animal. Everybody, from the fetus, from the first cell to the last minute, we are a person. If we are a person, we are subject of right. That means we have the right to live. So the right to live is founded on the fact that the first cell, the fetus, is a person. So he has the right to possess. Even someone is born, is not born when the parent dies. He can inherit. He is the heir. He is the heir. Suppose the father died, the child is only 8 years in the month in the womb of the mother. He is the heir of the kingdom. Because as a person, the fetus from the first cell is a person. You know, when you discuss about pro-life, we should know those things, those arguments. They are philosophical, they are based on science. So the nature of the special dignity consists in entitative sufficiency for independent subsistence. I am myself. Dominion over own activity. I am the one who is my nature. What is nature? Is my essence or principle of my activity. And spirituality. I am not only a body, I am a spiritual being. Consequences, next page. So the human person is free from limitation of space and time. Through my mind, I can go everywhere on earth. I can transcend in time. I have a conscience. I am responsible, freedom for my action. I can enter a relationship with others. So here that is the foundation of the social ethics. The foundation of social ethics is here. A person is in a relationship with others. So the human person have individual differences. I spoke about that already. And when among, not only we are different by our quantified matter, but we are different by our habits. And our habits, they form what we call our personality. We have a different personality because we have different habits. So they are virtues. Habits are virtues. We already spoke about that. So in fact, a man is a self, is an I. Because I am an I am responsible for my activity. I have I am a human person, therefore my activity as a human nature are under my responsibility. You eat, you say I. You study, you say I. You pray, you say I. Your I is sustaining all your action, therefore you can apply to I or your activity. Therefore your I is responsible for everything you do. That is the foundation of ethics. In fact, when we study the human person, we study ethics also. And we prepare for study and the incarnation, one nature, two person, and to study the Holy Trinity, two person, one nature, you know. That two nature for Jesus Christ in one person. All that is based on what we study tonight. It's a very important subject. And also the human rights are based on that also. The human rights is not a decision for the United Nations. They are founded on the fact we are human, and because we are human, and then we have a special right. Don't have animal don't have. Is the reason why I'm not atheist when we call the society protecting the animals, we call them an human society. Human is they are not human. Because they are not intelligent, they are not free, they are not responsible. When a cat steals a chicken, and when my dog ate the piece of steak prepared by the cook before the meal, he is not responsible, he follows his instinct. But we have a responsibility because our will is able to control our instinct. That is a proof of our spirituality. You understand why, for example, drunkenness is considered as a thing, because drunkenness makes men like an animal. Drunkenness, like drug, suppress from men the most important characteristic is reasonability. He is no more a rational animal. Okay? So I thank you for your attention, and I wish I will see you next semester in the Compendium 2. Okay.
When